Wait, how does a fetal monitor flatline and her sister tells her not to touch the baby? Yet the system shows Elena responsible for a past loss on her own credentials.
The fetal monitor flatlined, and my sister screamed at me to stay away from her baby in a room suddenly gone silent. I didn't move, because in that instant, every sound in the delivery room collapsed into one thing, the steady alarm turning into a single, unbroken tone that meant we were losing the baby. Clear the airway, I ordered sharply, stepping forward anyway despite Claire's hand snapping out like she wanted to push me away. Her face was soaked in sweat and fear, her body locked in the final stage of labor, but her eyes weren't on the baby. They were on me. I said don't touch anything, she screamed again, voice cracking. I'm Dr. Alina Carter, OB/GYN attending at St. Mary's Hospital, and I've handled hundreds of emergencies, but nothing feels like operating under the weight of a family that already buried you once. Behind the glass, I caught movement. My mother, standing there, watching me. And the second she saw my scrubs, her expression didn't soften. It hardened, like she had walked into a memory she refused to accept. 6 years of silence suddenly had a face again. Doctor, we're losing fetal output, the nurse said urgently. Before we continue with this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell for updates. I know, I replied, already moving. But Claire's voice cut through again, weaker now, almost panicked. Don't let her near me, she's not supposed to be here. That sentence hit harder than the alarms. Not supposed to be here. Like I was the mistake. Like I didn't belong in the same room where her child was fighting to breathe. My mother stepped closer to the glass, her lips moving but no sound coming out yet. Then finally, she turned to the nurse outside and asked something I couldn't hear, but I saw the nurse hesitate before answering. Inside the room, I reached for the chart. And that's when I saw it. A line in the system that made my stomach drop. A previous pregnancy record linked to Claire with my signature on it. Impossible. I froze for half a second too long. Claire noticed. And smiled. Not in pain. Not in fear. In recognition. Like she had been waiting for me to see it. Tell them, she whispered through clenched teeth. Tell them you don't remember that either. The monitor spiked again, then dropped. The baby was slipping. The nurse suddenly leaned closer to me, voice low, urgent. Doctor, why does this file say you were responsible for her last pregnancy loss? And from behind the glass, my mother slowly raised her hand to her mouth, like she had just realized she was about to hear something she could never take back. I didn't answer the nurse immediately, because my eyes were still locked on that line in the chart. Responsible for her last pregnancy loss. It wasn't just wrong, it was surgically precise. Time-stamped. Signed. Verified in the system as if I had personally documented Claire's medical history. But I had never treated her as a patient. Not once. Run a full audit on this file, I said quickly, forcing my voice to stay steady. Now. The nurse hesitated, then nodded and moved, but I caught the way she looked at me. Uncertainty creeping in. Behind the glass, my mother was still standing frozen. Watching. Waiting for something to make sense. Claire groaned in pain as another contraction hit, but even through it, her eyes stayed on me. You're shaking, she whispered. I'm focused, I replied without looking up. But I wasn't just focused on the delivery anymore. I was focused on the lie sitting inside the system. The fetal monitor beeped weakly again, unstable, fading. Prepare epinephrine protocol, I ordered. The team moved fast. But then Claire suddenly grabbed my wrist again, harder this time. Don't fix this, she said under her breath, barely audible. Just let it happen. I finally looked at her. And for the first time, I didn't see pain in her face. I saw control. That's when something shifted behind the glass. My mother turned sharply to one of the senior nurses outside the room. Her voice wasn't loud, but I saw her lips clearly. She's the one who caused this before, she said. Before what? Before the miscarriage they were still convinced I had faked? My pulse tightened, because I knew exactly what before she meant, and I had never been allowed to defend myself against it. The nurse inside returned, voice tight. Doctor, the audit flagged something. I turned. What? She swallowed. The entry wasn't just edited. It was created from an internal login, using your credentials. A cold silence hit the room. My ID, my access. Used without my knowledge. Claire exhaled slowly, almost satisfied. And then she said something that didn't belong in a delivery room. You should have stayed gone, Alina.
Wait, how does the delivery room chat suddenly show my credentials used from outside the hospital system? And why does Claire look satisfied right now?
The fetal monitor suddenly dropped into a dangerous rhythm again. Rapid, unstable, collapsing. Fetal bradycardia, someone shouted. Everything moved at once. But my mind stayed stuck on one thing. Someone didn't just lie about me. They built a medical record around it. And made my signature the proof. Then the door behind the glass opened. My mother stepped inside. For the first time in 6 years. And she didn't look at Claire. She looked at me and whispered, "Tell me you didn't touch her pregnancy." I didn't answer my mother right away. Not because I didn't hear her, but because Claire screamed again, and this time, it wasn't just pain. It was panic layered over something else. Fear that didn't belong to labor. "Get it out of me now," she shouted, gripping the bed rails so hard her knuckles went white. The fetal monitor spiked, then dipped dangerously again. Emergency delivery prep. I ordered instantly. We're losing stability. The room snapped into controlled chaos. Oxygen masks, sterile trays, rapid movement. But my attention stayed fractured between 3 things. The baby, the chart, and my mother standing inside the room like a ghost of a life I used to have. She took 1 step closer. "You never denied it properly," she said quietly. "When Claire told us what happened, you just disappeared." I tightened my grip on the chart tablet, because that wasn't true. I tried to show them everything: records, reports, doctors, dates. But every time I spoke, Claire had already spoken louder. "I didn't disappear," I said finally, my voice low. "You just stopped listening." Claire laughed through a contraction. A broken, breathless sound. "Still acting like the victim," she muttered. That word hit like a trigger. Victim. The audit finished pinging on the screen behind me. The nurse froze as she read it, then slowly turned the screen toward me. "Doctor, this access log shows the entry was made from your credentials, but it originated from outside the hospital network." My stomach tightened. Outside. Remote. Someone had used my identity. Deliberately. Repeatedly. Claire exhaled sharply as another contraction hit, but her eyes flicked toward the screen, and something like satisfaction crossed her face. "You're finally seeing it," she whispered. My mother's voice broke. "Seeing what?" But Claire answered instead. That she was never supposed to come back into our lives after what she did. The fetal monitor suddenly alarmed louder. The baby was crashing. "Prepare for immediate extraction," I ordered. But then, a second alert flashed on the system. "Unauthorized admin access detected. Live session active." My breath stopped. Because the access wasn't just historical. It was happening right now. From inside the hospital system. From someone currently connected. I looked up slowly. And every nurse in the room was suddenly looking at the same thing. The control terminal, which had just been locked. From another location. My mother stepped back instinctively. Claire smiled through the pain, barely able to speak. And then she whispered, almost gently, "Did you think I did all of this alone?" The fetal monitor flatlined into a long, terrifying tone. And from the locked system terminal, a new file began opening itself. With my name on it. "Clear the field now," I shouted. But no one moved immediately. Because the monitor's flatline wasn't just noise anymore. It was a declaration that we were seconds away from losing the baby permanently. "Charge neonatal resuscitation team." I snapped, forcing control back into the room. The OR team surged into motion. But my eyes kept flicking to the system terminal. Still locked. Still opening files on its own. And still showing my name on every line that appeared. My mother backed toward the wall, voice barely steady. "What is happening to this hospital?" Claire, pale and shaking, laughed weakly between contractions that were now finishing post-delivery. "You still don't get it," she whispered at me. It was never just about what I said. I didn't respond, because I was already inside the audit logs, bypassing secondary layers manually. And what I saw there finally made my hands go still. The access wasn't a single breach. It was a structured pattern. Years of entries. Each one timed around critical moments in my life. My exams, my graduation, my miscarriage, my departure from home. Every major event had been mirrored in the system, rewritten, and attributed to me. My breath slowed. Not because I was confused, because I was starting to understand how deep this went. My mother stepped closer to Claire, her voice breaking. "Did you do this to your sister?" Claire didn't answer immediately. She looked at me instead. And for the first time, her expression wasn't victory. It was exhaustion. "I didn't want you back," she said quietly. "They loved you too much even when you weren't there." The baby suddenly cried. A weak, sharp sound from the resuscitation table. Alive. But barely. Relief didn't come, because the system terminal suddenly unlocked itself again. And a new file appeared. Not from Claire's account. Not from mine. But from an administrative root user labeled Family under custom mode. My mother's breath caught. "No," she whispered. And then the screen opened a single recorded video log. Dated 6 years ago. The day I lost my pregnancy. My mother took one step forward, but stopped when the video started playing audio. And in it, my own voice said something I had never said in my life. "I don't want anyone to know I was ever pregnant." My vision blurred, because I remembered that day. I remembered the doctor's report. I remembered the silence. But I did not remember saying that. Claire's voice cut in softly from the bed. "You were never the only one being edited." My mother slowly turned toward me, and for the first time, she looked afraid of the answer. "Then what did we believe all those years?" she whispered. The system terminal flashed one final alert. Root logs unlocked. Originating source. Internal Family Medical Authority. And then the screen went black. The blackout lasted only a few seconds, but in that silence, everything in the room changed. The fetal monitor stabilized first. A steady rhythm returned, confirming the baby was alive. The neonatal team let out a controlled breath of relief, but no one relaxed, because the system wasn't done. The screen flickered back on. And this time, the audit logs weren't fragmented anymore. They were complete. I stepped closer, my hand steady now, not from calm, but from the kind of clarity that only comes when denial finally breaks. The root logs expanded across the display, revealing something none of us were prepared to see. Multiple administrative entries originating from a hospital-linked external authority labeled Family Medical Liaison Program, a private oversight system designed to manage sensitive familial healthcare disclosures. My mother stared at it like it didn't belong in reality. "What is that?" she whispered. I didn't answer immediately, because the truth was assembling itself in front of us. Claire wasn't the sole architect of the lie. She had been part of a structured family-controlled system that had access to medical metadata, one that allowed selective rewriting of psychological and reproductive history under the guise of protective family intervention. And my miscarriage? It had been real, fully documented. But after it happened, the system had been used to reshape the narrative, removing clinical confirmation from official family access channels while injecting false instability markers into my record. My name had been attached to fabricated behavioral entries, including the "I was never pregnant" audio log, digitally altered and signed using compromised credentials tied to shared family access privileges from my early medical training. Claire exhaled shakily, tears finally breaking through. "I didn't do it alone," she said again, but this time there was no control in her voice. "They told me it was to protect the family." My mother took a step back, shaking her head slowly. "No," she whispered. "No. I just wanted peace in this family." But peace built on erased truth had already destroyed everything. The hospital administrator entered the room, alerted by the system breach, and immediately saw the open logs. His expression changed instantly. "This is a regulated data violation," he said firmly. "We're shutting down all external access and escalating this to legal oversight." No one argued, because there was nothing left to defend. Claire was moved under guard, not in drama, but in procedural silence. The consequences were no longer emotional, They were institutional. Her unauthorized access, combined with falsified medical records and identity misuse, triggered a formal investigation that would extend beyond the hospital. My mother stayed frozen until the baby's cry filled the room again. Real. Strong this time. Alive. That sound broke something in her. She turned toward me slowly, voice shaking. We believed her, because it was easier than believing we hurt you. I didn't respond right away, because the truth didn't feel like victory. It felt like exhaustion finally settling into place. I didn't need you to choose sides, I said quietly. I needed you to ask questions. Silence followed. Not empty silence, but the kind that comes after something irreversible is finally understood. Weeks later, the investigation confirmed everything. The miscarriage was real. The manipulation of records was systemic. The emotional and medical isolation I suffered had been reinforced by falsified data that shaped every decision my family made afterward. There was no dramatic reconciliation. No perfect repair. Just consequences. Claire faced legal proceedings for unauthorized system manipulation and identity misuse within medical infrastructure access points. My parents entered supervised reconciliation therapy mandated by the investigation board, not because anyone demanded forgiveness, but because the truth required acknowledgement before anything else could exist. And me? I returned to my work, not as the daughter they once defined through a lie, but as the doctor who could finally trust what was real again. One afternoon, I stood in the hospital corridor holding my daughter's hand while she pointed at the newborn nursery window. Behind the glass, Claire's baby slept safely, monitored, stable. My mother stood beside me, not speaking, just present this time. No explanations. No rewriting. Only truth, finally left untouched. And for the first time in years, that was enough to keep everything from collapsing again.
If a hospital system could rewrite something this personal, using internal credentials and family authority notes, how many real cases like this are already being dismissed as mistakes right now?